Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your producer and host of the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. This is your motivational podcast of people's incredible journeys. Oh, yeah, let's do this. Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lino Martinez. Today, I would love to welcome Dean Graves. He's a renowned meditation teacher, mental health counselor, and spiritual guide with over 20 years of experience in the field. Through his expertise in mental health and deep spiritual understanding, he provides a holistic approach to healing and growth. With his compassionate and insightful guidance, he has inspired and empowered people from all walks of life to embrace mindfulness and meditation as a path to greater self-awareness and spiritual awakening. That's the path I'm on. Welcome to A Little Less Fear podcast, Dean. So nice to finally meet you.
Likewise. Thank you, Leno. I'm delighted to be here.
This is really amazing. I mean, I love the connection. I know that there's no coincidence to any connection that people have in life, including my connection here with you at this very moment, at this very present moment. And while I'm here in this present moment with you, I just want to really tell you thank you so much for your energy and the dedication that you give to bring messages to people. Healing messages is what you're doing.
Yeah, well, that is my purpose. Yeah, I have the underlying self motivation to hopefully be a contributory factor to a new age of enlightenment. And so most everything that I do is geared towards that end, regardless of what level that people are on or in their stage of enlightenment. I hope to be able to provide information to move them forward on that. And most people misunderstand enlightenment because of the Buddha's success. They perceive enlightenment to be a destination, but the reality is it's a path, and we are all on that path, whether we're aware of it or not. And so the happier we are, the more happiness we experience, the more closely we are following the path. When we experience stress, suffering, as we alluded to earlier, then we wandered off into the weeds. And so we need to get back on the path.
Dean, before talking about getting back on the path, what brought you to the path?
Well, an awakening. An awakening is misunderstood also. Awakening is nothing more than that point in a person's life where they realize that all the stuff that they've been doing, becoming business professionals or family or whatever it is, are not bringing them greater happiness.
Right.
And it's at that point, that is the awakening. It is that point that we are motivated to look around and see what alternatives are there. And we learn by analogy, we learn by comparison and contrast. And so we experiment with different ideas, different beliefs. And if it resonates with it, then we keep it, and we slowly, incrementally refine our perception of self until we make significant progress. And I tell my meditation students when they're beginning meditation, almost everyone comes to meditation running away from the stick. In other words, the stick hurts. And so they're looking for relief from the stick. And so they begin to meditate, and I tell them, be diligent and keep doing the work until one day you get a bite of the apple. And the apple tastes really good, and you want more of the apple. So our motivation transforms at that point from running away from the stick to chasing the apple. And so we're better able to refine our activities in order to more diligently pursue the apple instead of running away from the stick, because we give up those elements of our life that were generating the stick in the first place.
How do we begin to refine our activities?
Well, we refine our activity. The process of enlightenment at our range of consciousness is twofold. One, we are um, required to heal the emotional baggage that we have collected over the course of our lifetime. And number two is we need to become aware of the beliefs that we have incorporated into our hierophant, our false identity, which is same thing as our ego.
Mhm.
We perceive, and this is all by design, we perceive ourselves to be our ego.
Right.
And so we promote that ego. And the more we live within our ego, and the ego is predicated upon the belief that we can get from the world what we need. And I go through a reductive process with my patients as well as my students that what you really are seeking is love. But the
Yes.
irony is we don't know what love is. I mean, we want more money, we want more bigger house, whatever the perceived motivation is, the underlying motivation is to get love. And so for that confused, chaotic part of our life, we're trying to get the world to love us. And so we continually refine this hierophant, hoping that we can get, if we get just the perfect hierophant, then we'll get love all the time.
Mhm.
And that's erroneous because the hierophant is false. The identity is false. There's no hierophant, there's no identity that is true. And so we begin to surrender those beliefs that we've incorporated into our hierophant. And as we do that, then we experience more of our authentic self. And as we experience more of our authentic self, our stress level goes down significantly. And we realize that we are what we seek. We are the love that we seek.
Yes.
Love is not a commodity. We can't get love and we can't give love to anyone. But what we can get is permission from others to allow us to surrender this false perception of self long enough that we feel who we really are. When we have felt love in our life, it is only because that person or the people or the situation we were in allowed us to surrender this hierophant. And when we do that, then our authentic self arises and we feel the love that we are. And that's why it feels so good. That is our authentic self. Of course, as soon as we get out of that situation, most people revert back to that hierophant and begin to promote that hierophant again.
Okay, so basically, in order to find the love that we seek, which is love for ourselves, because in all of our existence,
Well,
humanity.
if I may stop you right there,
Yes.
that is a misconception. We
Okay.
don't love ourselves because that makes love a commodity. We are love. Love is a condition of
Yes.
being.
I love this. We are love. And so, in order for us to come into this awareness of us knowing that we already are love, rather than seeking elsewhere and not seeking within, when you start to, when people are able to heal emotional baggage, become aware of our beliefs that contribute to our identity, current identity, or our ego, then we are able to drop what has been weighing down our false identity and come into a sense of true awareness, which is our eternal love that has always been within us.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You see, creation is designed, everything that we experience is consciousness. Everything. Creation was designed around five inherent characteristics of the creator that become apparent, they become delineated in one of the higher dimensions. The five inherent characteristics are awareness, love, wisdom, unity, and stillness. In our range of consciousness is elementary. We are at the beginning of our self controlled progression through evolution. At this level, because it is foundational, our task is to become aware, but also further than that to actually become awareness. And so during this range of consciousness, we have an opportunity as we become more and more awareness to get peeks behind the curtain of what love feels like. Love is not something that we will realize until we graduate to the next range of consciousness. And love is our condition of being. The whole purpose of creation is so that the one infinite creator might know itself by experiencing itself. We are the one infinite creator experiencing creation at this range of consciousness. And so our task is to become awareness, which is third grade. It's doing our lessons in third grade. So we'll be prepared to graduate to fourth grade and do the lessons of fourth grade.
Absolutely love this. So by experiencing self, so the task is to become awareness. What were those five again? You said it was awareness, love, unity.
Well, wisdom, they're hierarchical only because you have to build the floor before you build the walls, and walls before you build the roof. But awareness is what we are tasked with becoming at this
Yes.
range. The next range of consciousness will
Love,
be love. The next range of consciousness will be wisdom,
wisdom, and then unity.
and then unity, and then stillness.
Unity, and then stillness. So there's four.
The five.
I'm
Awareness,
sorry.
love,
Awareness,
wisdom,
love, wisdom, unity, and stillness. Okay.
and yeah.
And stillness. Okay, great. Now, if awareness is the first and our task is to become awareness, is it that once we become more into our awareness that all the rest line up: love, wisdom, unity, and stillness?
Well, they are sequential, and each range of consciousness is tasked with exploring that archetype, that aspect of the creator.
Okay.
So, yes, we're not going to explore love, wisdom, unity, and stillness in this range of consciousness. We get peeks behind the curtain, but we're not, that it's difficult for us to understand and to know because it's beyond our capacities with the range of consciousness that we currently experience. But love, because we are love, we are all of these characteristics now. We can't be anything else, but our capacity to experience them and truly explore them requires a higher degree of evolutionary advancement.
Yes. That makes sense.
Yeah. And alluding your allusion earlier to a higher self, our higher selves are all unity range. And so they are significantly higher consciousness than we are. They are the first range of what's considered to be creator beings. In other words, they create the experiences that we have.
Creator beings creating the experiences that we have, and that is higher consciousness, is what you're saying, or that is our higher self?
Well, that is our higher self. That is our ultimate guide.
So
Yeah,
how can
our
we
highest self
explain
is,
how can we explain higher self?
well, my guide explains it as ourselves in the future, which is again difficult for us to parse because we perceive ourselves so significantly as an autonomous being. But
Right.
as we evolve in the process of evolution, is a surrendering our perception of autonomy. We perceive ourselves to be an autonomous single organism.
Yes, we do.
The next range of consciousness, we begin with that same perspective, but in order to graduate from that range of consciousness, we have to surrender that and we become what's called a social memory complex, which means we resonate with others adequately, that we perceive ourselves to be a much larger organism. And that again is the whole process of the rest of evolution. We're surrendering our confined perceptions of autonomy until we eventually dissolve that and again are one with the creator.
Thank you for that. And
Sure.
so higher self is us in the future, and meaning us in the future that has gone through the evolution of consciousness, that of which we just discussed: awareness, love, wisdom, unity, and stillness. Or us in the future, I mean, if time doesn't exist, you mean in a different dimensional plane, or one with consciousness?
Well, we're one with consciousness now. It's just our limitations of perception that can experience that.
Because of our need to feel that we're autonomous.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All of the perceptions, we have the capacity right now. There's no rules that forbid this, to just zip home to unity with the creator and skip all of the evolutionary process. But in order to do that, we have to surrender all of these very intense perceptions of separation, these intense
Yeah.
perceptions of autonomy. And that's not the design. The design is that we will experience each of these ranges of consciousness and explore fully those inherent characteristics that are um, apparent or predominant in that range of consciousness.
Mhm.
And again, the purpose of creation is so that the one infinite creator might know itself by experiencing itself. And that is the minuteness of the exploration that is taking place in the evolutionary process. Is we are perceptually confined within a range of consciousness so that we may explore that as completely and deeply as possible.
You said something right now that's still in my head. Surrender to separateness.
Surrender our perception of separation.
Surrender our perception of separation, which is also attachment, correct?
It is, well, attachment is part of it, certainly. It's part of our distortion of perception. Creation is made possible because of a very basic distortion. And philosophers for centuries have debated whether we have free will or whether we don't have free, whether we're predetermined and
Yeah.
so forth. That's a misperception of free will. Free will is the perception of separation. And that is what makes creation possible, is that we perceive ourselves as separate from the creator, which is erroneous,
Mm-hmm.
but yet is very strong in our range of consciousness. So as we evolve, we incrementally surrender that perception of separation. Free will works like an intoxicant. When we drink whiskey, it lowers our awareness
Mm-hmm.
and we do crazy, stupid things.
Right.
Free will does the same thing. So we are intensely intoxicated with free will. And so
Yeah.
our evolution is the process of surrendering our perception of separation. Free will, we're sobering from our free will intoxication.
I love that analogy. There's definitely a lot more clarity there. We're surrendering. I mean, that's the sobriety here, is when you actually surrender, and and when you surrender, that's when you allow awareness to start making itself present.
Yeah,
It's always been present, but you're able to
we just
just
didn't
become more,
recognize it.
recognize it.
Yeah.
And in recognize, let's say someone has no idea what awareness means. How does someone begin to recognize awareness?
Everyone has awareness, and it is evident even in the world that we experience today. In order to defend, protect, and promote this hierophant, we have awareness and we have to use it efficiently, but it's directional and it's pointed outside of us. So I watch your reactions, I watch your behavior in response to my hierophant, into my false identity.
Mm.
And when I'm getting from you what I want, then that reinforces my hierophant. When I experience something I don't like, any experience that I have that I don't like is a challenge to my hierophant, to my
Right.
identity. And so consequently, I make modifications in my identity in order to try to make it more effective in getting me more of what I like from the world around me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the healing process, as we were discussing earlier, teaches us that we have to invert that same awareness. Instead of it pointing outside of us, we turn it inside. And that's what meditation does. We turn that awareness inside and become aware of these this emotional baggage that we have created and are still carrying, we become aware of the beliefs that we've incorporated into our false identity that are causing us perpetual stress, and we begin to surrender that. So it's the same awareness everyone has, but we're not going to become aware of awareness while it's pointed outside of it. It's only when we learn to invert that and take that awareness inside do we begin to become aware of awareness and learn the aspects of awareness and use that tool of awareness to propel our evolution.
And so, using that tool of awareness for our evolution, you're saying evolution, do you mean human evolution or soul evolution or all together evolution?
Well, our soul actually that is our metaphysical self. And this range of consciousness that we currently experience, we are simultaneously existing in the metaphysical world and in this world. The metaphysical self is a consciousness pattern. And so that consciousness pattern is very malleable. It changes with every experience that we have, and it has a perception of autonomy as well. And so what is preserved after we die from an incarnation is what we have learned about the five inherent characteristics. And that is incorporated into our consciousness pattern, our metaphysical self. And it's the metaphysical self that is enduring, that actually is evolving and transforming. We are simply an analog projection of that to have certain types of experiences in order to facilitate that evolution.
And so, you have you have some incredible topics here. Something that you are ready to discuss is because you're I mean you're bringing this into my awareness, and I need to ask you this question: what happens when we die?
Well, we go through a transition period, and it's not the same for everyone, but it is the same for everyone. And I'll have to unpack that. But we go depending on the degree where we are in our level of consciousness. And consciousness is scaled. Um, Someone who is very low on the consciousness scale, which most of Earth is, will go through a series of what we will perceive to be lights. And those lights are nothing more than incremental stages that allow us to surrender our attachment to the physical world and kind of get a feeling. We'll be in a fog and mentally in a fog initially, and as we transition, then that fog lifts until we integrate with our metaphysical self. We become our one metaphysical body again. For someone that is more advanced, the number of stages and steps are significantly less. Some people, people that have experienced an NDA or NDE rather, some of them go through multiple steps, some of them go one or two steps. Those that have gone through just one or two steps before they stop have achieved a higher level of consciousness in their enduring self. And so there's less need to graduate their reintroduction to their metaphysical self. When we are born, it's just a reverse process. There's a great debate of when a baby becomes a human. The spirit doesn't come into the body until the third trimester. Some higher consciousness beings don't come in until the moment of birth, and because they don't need the adjustment time.
Mm-hmm.
And when the baby is moving inside the mother's womb, it's not near the end of the term. They're simply trying out the vehicle. They're playing with the controls and testing it, and so they're moving around and adjusting and seeing how things work. And then they'll depart the body until they maybe come back and do that again. And they'll do that several times throughout the course of primarily the third trimester until they are there. If it is a lower consciousness spirit that is coming in, then they need to come in earlier. So they'll come in near the beginning of the third trimester. If it's a higher consciousness being, as I say, they may zip in at the moment of birth.
That's really incredible. I've heard both. I've always wondered on that. I've heard that it comes at the moment of birth, or that it comes before. I was always
Depends
curious
on
about that.
the spirit that's incarnating,
Hmm.
because they are not unlike us. There's a lot that our metaphysical self doesn't know, and it's again relatively new. It's very protected in that environment. It's a very intense learning time, but again, their level of advancement and their degree of surrender and trust in the guides that are directing this incarnation varies with their experience and their level of acceptance. But the average human has incarnated over 3,000 times, some as many as 8,000.
That's incredible. And that doesn't necessarily mean just here on Earth. That means on other planets or other dimensions, correct?
Well, yeah, it's there is necessary graduation from third density, which is the range of consciousness that we experience. And if you are in the third density expecting to graduate, you're trying to graduate, meet the criteria, learn the criteria in order to graduate to fourth density, then you're incarnating a whole bunch of times. You're learning um, from being incarnated in different features. We'll incarnate as a male and a female. We'll incarnate as a black person, a white person, whatever possibility there is, wealthy person, poor person, whatever combination of lifetime experiences there are, we will incarnate that because we have a different lens through which we enjoy our experiences.
Mhm.
And so consequently, when we learn all the curriculum by experiencing all of these incarnations, and we have done the work to graduate, then we will graduate to fourth density. But it takes a lot of incarnations in order to have the variety of experiences necessary to learn the curriculum, number one. But Earth has had a very difficult time progressing. And so there's been added help, added punch in order to provide opportunities of learning for the earthly population. And we still dwell as a population, we still dwell primarily in the lower dimensions of the density. If a density is like a mile, and if you think of a dimension as an inch, so we progress by inches to fulfill the whole range of potential curriculum. And we are, for the most part, still below halfway point as the bulk of the population in our evolution.
Is that only okay, so I'm aware that there's multiple versions of us that are existing simultaneously in the same go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, yes and no.
Okay.
Usually in a normal third, you usually have the energy capacity to incarnate in as many as 3 or 4 lifetimes simultaneously. And as we near the end of the range of consciousness, as we make progress, then we can incarnate as many as 8 or 9 times simultaneously. The earthly population has had such difficulty in advancing, it's all we can do to do 1, maybe 2 incarnations simultaneously. So we are considered a second chance planet. So everyone here has failed to graduate from other third density experiences numerous times.
And how does karma come into play with this?
That is karma.
Yes.
Well, there's a popular misunderstanding of karma as well. We perceive that we create our experiences, that we create thought. The reality is that we attract thoughts. Thoughts are how we experience creation. And it's the
Yes.
thoughts that are created that we attract that gives us the perceptions and our understanding that we do. Everything that we could ever possibly want to know up to the highest ranges of consciousness is available to us, but we can't attract it. And so when we create our condition of being, our incarnate condition of being in a certain way, we become magnetic. And so we attract experiences that we interpret as karma. If we do something bad, just to keep it simple, when we do something bad, then the popular perception is, well, you're going to have to experience the other side of that. So you'll get your comeuppance or your retribution will be
Sure.
accomplished. And that's not the way it works. Because we have instituted that behavior that is deemed to be bad, we have created ourselves. So we're attracting to us the types of experiences that are going to appear to be karmic. But there's no retribution, there's no punishment in anything in creation. It is just how we have shaped our condition of being that is magnetic and attracting those experiences that we perceive to be retribution for our prior wrongdoings.
I, I love this. I love this outlook, and mostly because of how derogatory it could be when you're talking when on the topic of karma, and so and painful, and in really seeing that we are attracting our own thoughts constantly, and then you are able to actually see that there is no right or wrong, nor bad or good, other than the direction of thought that you've been giving. And the more you keep thinking something, it's what it becomes your belief, your identity. And then
Mhm.
everything is then circled around this identity that you've created because of thoughts that you kept thinking.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And we control it. We are in complete control of that by virtue of our awareness and becoming aware of what it is that we have incorporated into our perception of self, our beingness. And as we change that, then the nature of our experiences transforms.
I love this, Dean. This is fantastic.
Good.
So Dean is also a podcaster, everyone, and I was listening to his podcast. A few episodes actually, and I was really taken aback in an incredible way because well, first of all, tell us about your podcast.
Okay. Well, the podcast that I think you're alluding to is called Chatting with the Arcturians. And it is just a conversation. My significant other is a channel, a vocal channel. I'm not a vocal channel. And she tunes into the Arcturians and we chat. We just, I ask questions, a lot of which I've been taught already by um, my higher self, but it provides a good nucleus for allowing the Arcturians to expand on topics that are bouncing around in the public mind that it gives us their perspective on it. And it's not significantly different perspective, but it is a slightly different perspective, but it is still significantly higher consciousness.
For people tuning in for the first time, or even hearing the word Arcturian for the first time, how could you describe who the Arcturians are?
Well, okay, have to unpack that just a little bit first.
Sure.
Uh, our universe, every universe is designed to facilitate variety in experiences for the creator. Every universe, there are five inherent characteristics which we talked about
Hmm.
there that are archetypes. Free will is an archetype in and of itself, but it's a distortion. And in addition to the five inherent characteristics, free will, there are 26 other distortions that have been created, taken purely from the five inherent characteristics. For example, one of the inherent characteristics is stillness. Well, the opposite of that would be motion. And so motion is an archetype. It is a distortion that is actually part of our experience. And so our universe is designed with nine of the um, uh, archetypes of the creator, the five inherent characteristics, and four distortions. And so every expansion of our universe has come in groups of nine. and each star is a home to an aspect of this creation.
Wow, it's incredible.
Each star is home to either an inherent characteristic, one of the distortions that comprise our universe. And so we are part of a 9-star system. The Arcturians are simply a different 9-star system that have been in the system a lot longer than we have. The Pleiadians are another 9-star system. And there are, well, you can look in the night sky and see all the potential for other 9-star systems that there
Wow.
are that are simply part of our universe.
And so they are part of the 9-star system, and I'm assuming that they too also have, I mean, it makes sense now, a higher consciousness, their higher consciousness, because overall, whether it's this 9-star system or their 9-star system or a 9-star system in another universe, it's all one consciousness is one consciousness that's contributing to higher consciousness.
Yeah, they just have different experiences. It's
Yeah.
the same intelligence. It's all is one. One is it's the law of one. Everything is one. They just have had different experiences and are trying to share their experiences with us to help us move forward in our evolution.
So they are much more advanced than we are in their evolution.
Well, they're more experienced. I wouldn't say that they're higher consciousness, but our 9-star system is equivalent consciousness, just a variety of experiences. So, relatively speaking, um, uh, we just are more naive than they are.
Okay.
And so, by virtue of their experience, they can offer an experiential guidance that can only come from experience.
And so they too have gone through their evolution.
They're still in the process. There are ranges of consciousness within the Arcturian star system that are the same place we are, same level
Oh,
of
wow,
consciousness we are.
interesting.
Yeah,
Such
they
as what?
speak to us as one voice, but they're speaking as the 9-star system, which is obviously dominated for purposes of communication by the higher consciousness. But that notwithstanding, their organism, this 9-star system, is a single organism. Our
Yes.
9-star system is a single organism. So the voice that they share with us and the wisdom that they share with us comes from the higher consciousness voice, but it is as one organism.
Why do they want to give us this wisdom? Why do they want to help us?
All is one. If you help one, you've helped all. So they're simply offering guidance just as you would offer guidance to your children.
I love this. This is beautiful. And so your partner is able to channel a specific Arcturian or Arcturian consciousness or like a specific Arcturian being.
It's not a single entity.
Okay.
It's a voice, and some of the communications have included the Arcturians that were also participated with other members of the Federation. And the Federation of Planets in Service to the One Infinite Creator is a federation of multiple 9-star systems. It's a very large federation and transcends our universe. And so they have participated to deliver some of the messages that again vocally sounds the same, but it is a higher, more diverse group of very very serious. They're much more serious than the Arcturians are. The Arcturians have a good sense of humor, and they caution us and say, "We have members of the Federation here, so we have to calm it down today. We have to, be serious." And so, yeah, it's again a cumulative voice from the perspective that all is one.
I love this accumulative voice. So what do they want us to know?
Well, a lot of the sessions that we've talked about is explaining more detail of the structure of creation, our role, which we reiterate and we reiterate over and over the things about the healing the emotional baggage and surrendering the perceptions of or the beliefs that we incorporated into our hierophant, and just kind of outlining the steps that we have to go through, that all consciousness has to go through in order to advance. Recently, they have provided us with some, and one of the reasons that the Federation members participated is, and they emphasize they don't predict the future, but they do see the probability, and they rate it as a very high probability that we are going to begin receiving physical visitations from a variety of other star systems. In other words, is no longer something the government can hide and pretend like it's swamp gas or whatever. They'll be landing in government parks and government buildings and things of that nature in order to share information, number one, but also to help to connect us to the universal community, to
I love
dispel many
this.
of the false beliefs that we have incorporated into our various hegemonies.
To connect us to the universal community.
Consciousness. Yeah,
I love how you said this, the universal community, so that we can be part of the community
right.
because we're sitting here thinking that we're autonomous.
That's right.
And as long as we're thinking we're autonomous, we're not becoming part of the community.
That's right. As long as you stay locked in your bedroom and don't watch TV, you're isolated.
Right. And so Arcturians basically are coming to give us some of their wisdom in order to help us evolve faster or evolve with more wisdom. I mean, what goes
Well,
on
hopefully
there?
evolve faster. I mean, Earth is an accumulation of 16 different populations that have failed elsewhere. And so we are we're kind of like reform school, in that they put all of us here together, same range of consciousness, to share experiences, tremendously different backgrounds, and try to meld that into a new group to move each other forward, move us forward. We've struggled with that. We are making, fairly recently, we've been making relatively good progress, but we've been working a large portion of the earthly population began on the planet Zenoa, which was what we now call Venus.
Oh, wow.
And Venus had served as a very productive third density planet for billions of years, but some of us blew the atmosphere off of Venus. And so that ended the third density experience. And we were then moved to the planet Maldek. And Maldek is now the asteroid belt that we see in our solar system. That used to be a planet. We used to live there. We blew it up entirely. We were then transferred to Mars, and we didn't do well on Mars. We blew the atmosphere off of Mars. And then we were transferred to Earth, and there's a lot of sequence in between, but a new third density experience was started on Earth, and we've had great difficulties. There used to be a continent in between the North America and Europe that was called Atlantis, and people have speculated about that. And it was a continent. We blew that up, and the last of that sunk below the waves about 8441 BC. And so we have a very spotty history of disrupting and destroying the whole magnitude of our experience. But we have finished a third density experience and are beginning another one. So that in and of itself is a huge progression for our previous experience. But when we started the Earth experience, all these 15 other populations were added to our population.
And so we're currently ending one and starting another?
Well, we're actually, we've started another third density experience, but ironically, or uniquely, not ironically, we've also started a fourth density experience. And most of the children that have been born since the mid 2005, 2006 range are actually fourth density graduates. and they are beginning a fourth density experience that in a few generations will split, and those still dwelling in third density will continue with their third density experience, and the fourth density, now children, will proceed on their fourth density experience, but the two will not interact.
Is this the first time in our, I guess, our human evolution that we've experienced this type of split?
Yeah, this is most unique. It's unique in all of the universe.
So why now?
Well, because it's time. The planet itself, what we traditionally call Gaia, is actually already fourth density and is well into her fourth density evolution. And she's holding the energy for both the third density and the fourth density, but that is a hindrance on her development. And so, and she is on her own consciousness evolutionary path, just as we as an individual human are. And so the time is just right to split for those. It's hoped that the energy, even though not interacting, it's hoped that the energy of the fourth density will influence and serve as a magnet to pull the third density population up.
And fourth density population are the generation born 2005 and forward.
Yeah. Well, not all of them. I mean, there are third densities. They're still being born, but the overwhelming majority are fourth density.
And how will we start to see these changes?
Well, we're seeing the changes already, and the protests around the world against the Gaza strips, and these are the children that are just coming into their own, coming into their 20s and in that age range. Mm-hmm. We're seeing it in their protests of the wars around the world. We're seeing protests in Russia and all around the world, in China, in India, and they're not accepting of the traditional or the more institutional ideologies of the third density. And so they're revolting. They're offering protest, and they're elementary in their fourth density experience. So they're just beginning, but they won't be accepting of the third density ideologies that have been really so segregating and oppressive to huge portions of the population.
So I can feel that within 20 years from now, we're going to see an incredible difference with humanity.
Hopefully. Yeah. I imagine we will, most definitely.
That's really incredible. That's beautiful, actually, to know that there is definitely a rise in vibration, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that it's happening. And I have been seeing and I have been feeling it, because even just 10 years ago, the discussions that I have now wasn't having 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And a lot of younger people, a lot of younger population have these incredible conversations so easily and readily, and they understand the concepts. They don't need explanation.
Right. Yeah. Because their awareness and their intelligence is significantly higher than the third density populations.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. You know what I'm thinking, Dean? I mean, we're talking about, we talked about dying, what happens when you're dead, or when you're dying, that is, or you're transitioning. And we were talking about the 5 inherent characteristics, and talking about the Arcturians, and how we've incarnated or reincarnated over 3,000 times. And I'm thinking, well, what's our life purpose? Like, why are we doing all this anyway? Why do we keep coming back? And if we're not autonomous, what is life purpose for everybody?
Okay. Everybody's life purpose is exactly the same, and that is to explore ourselves by experiencing ourselves. Our mission in life is to do whatever we like to do. You became a psychologist. It is through being a psychologist that you attract to you the types of experiences that you find pleasurable, that will provide you with the opportunity for learning to fulfill your purpose, which is exploring yourself.
Okay. To explore ourselves is our true purpose, and that's our purpose for everybody.
That's the whole
And
purpose of creation.
to explore ourselves.
And your
And
perception of self constantly evolves, constantly changes.
our perception of self is constantly changing, evolving, and we are here to explore ourselves. And so why within exploring ourselves are we humanity continuously, or have been in the past, destroying our civilization?
Because of our hierophant,
Because of our identity, that
our
we
false
our
perception of
false
self.
ego.
Yeah,
And
exactly. That's all it is.
why has it taken so much destruction for there to finally be an evolution or a rise in to stop this constant destruction that we've been doing, planet and civilization after civilization?
Well, there are mitigating factors. We, as a population, the consciousness is scaled from 0 to 64, and consciousness advances in increments of 2 platforms. In other words, we experience ranges of consciousness in between these platforms, but the identifiable platforms are in increments of 2. First density, the lowest density, which is essentially everything from fire to matter, including atmosphere and water, ranges from 2 to 8. Second density, all plants and animals, range from 10 to 16. Our range of consciousness ranges from 18 to 24. The fourth density is 4 above that. Sixth density is the broadest range of consciousness. It is 8 platform levels. It corresponds to our DNA. And for years, scientists thought, well, we only have 20 strands of DNA that are activated, and those other strands of activated must have been from our historical past. Well, we just haven't activated those yet. But our DNA was manipulated by service to self entities, which is a whole nother topic, which I'll unpack if you want me to.
Oh my
It
goodness, I love it.
literally, in our incarnational bodies, snipped our DNA so that we could not DNA wise advance beyond that 20 strand level.
Okay.
And you understand, I'm sure, that they didn't snip everybody's DNA, but as we produce additional generations, then that DNA that was passed along was also snipped. And so it expanded throughout the population. And so all of the population is not snipped, but major portions of it are. And so we function as a unit. In other words, the population essentially is one organism on Earth. And so consequently, the hegemonies that have been promulgated by the snipped DNA have dominated all of the population. And we've had exceptions. Obviously, we identify saints and people like that have excelled beyond the normal consciousness level and behavior of the population. But as a general rule, we have been we've been very limited.
Yes, we have been very limited.
Yeah.
And so in the limitation, okay, so we've been limited, however, we are becoming less limited, and which is why we're now starting to evolve and have some fourth I'm sorry, I'm not thinking, I almost said
Portions of the population are. We
right.
still have huge portions of the
Yes.
population that are dwelling in the lower dimensions of the density,
Hmm.
and they continue to cycle over and over and over. And we are experiencing, if you want to look at it politically, as just as a rule of thumb, you're seeing the bifurcation in our politics around the world, and those adhering to the lower consciousness, domination, subjugation, keeping things as they have been, are those that are continuing to cycle in that lower dimensions of the density, those that are more people oriented, that want to help the population, advance the population, do away with all of the, or not all of the, but the majority of the institutions that have been so suppressive for generation after generation, are those of higher consciousness.
Mhm.
And it's, if you look at it, and that is a very strategic choice that we have to make in order to graduate from this range of consciousness. We have to choose whether we are going to polarize service to others or service to self. Those polarizing service to self are choosing to enhance this hierophant and to make it more dominant and more strong. In order to, again, and they can evolve for a long way along that path. But what happens when they make that choice, we are fueled by an energy, a constant source of energy from our higher self that's called intelligent energy. We require intelligent energy in order to sustain our participation in creation. When we choose the service to self path, we're choosing to separate from our higher self and that source of energy. And so we have to, those polarizing service to self have to get it elsewhere. They still have to have it, but they're not getting it from their primary source. And so they have to dominate and subjugate the third density population. We're like Goldilocks's porridge. We have enough energy to get rid of, but we're not smart enough not to give it away. And so they, throughout the universe, prey upon third density experiences in order to extract that intelligent energy. Their advancement along the service to self path requires that they become more and more successful in their domination and subjugation, not only of third density populations, but of others that are along that same path. And so they become more and more isolated as they advance along the consciousness path of the service to self. And so you get to a point where you have no friends, you have nobody that you can associate with, because everybody is a competitor. And by fifth density, along the service to self path, they are totally isolated. For example, Venus now is occupied by a single fifth density entity, and that's his domain. He doesn't want anybody around, but yet he is directing his minions that are in fourth density to perpetrate the domination and subjugation and the fear, stimulating fear that we experience as humans, in
What is
order to extract that energy. Every time we demonstrate fear, every time we have a war, every time we have any sort of disagreement, and we release that energy in the form of fear, they just gobble it up.
they gobble it up, meaning that's food for them.
It's food, yeah. It sustains them. They've got to have it in order to sustain their existence in creation, and it works kind of like Tupperware. You know, you've got somebody at the top that's getting a little bitty piece of everything down below. And then the next layer, they get a little bit more, but less of a broad spectrum. And you got a whole bunch of minions out there knocking on doors selling Tupperware. And the same is true. There's a lot of fourth density entities out there that are running around, not detectable by us, but they're perpetrating and stimulating. When we have negative thoughts, you just kind of in a daze, and all of a sudden, you have a negative thought and you just run with that, and you're just way down the street in that negative thought from what it originally began. You know, all they're doing is they don't create thoughts either. They're just pushing the thought over there. They see your energy. They see what you're predisposed to react to. Mm-hmm. So they just kind of push the thought over there, just kind of float it over there and let you pick it up. And then you're off and running to the races, because
but I guess I'm not understanding their purpose for that.
Well, they've got to get your energy in order to sustain their existence.
Like the whole, I mean, I've heard energy vampires. That's something, I mean, it's similar to that, correct?
Similar to that, yeah. I mean, that's thought of usually in a human to human perspective.
Right.
But the same thing,
Exactly.
someone choosing service to self, and you know, I don't want to get political, but you know, we have a candidate for president that is far along the negative path, the service to self path.
Oh, yeah.
And what he gets out of those rallies that he holds, if you look at people coming out of the rally, they're exhausted because they've given him all their energy, and he's feeding off of their energy that they're giving him in those rallies. But the
Hmm.
population, they're, oh, wow, that was great. They just have no energy. They gave all their energy to him. And
Right.
that's why he keeps doing those rallies, because he gets that pump, that energy pump, but yet he's passing it along to the higher service to self entities, and they're loving it. They're just gobbling it up.
Sure. Wow, this is incredible information, Dean. And so when we're able to become okay, so when we go back to the five inherent characteristics and we become more aware and we become more aware of our love, the love that we've all been, these quote unquote energy vampires or energy entities can no longer take from us
Yeah,
that
we're too smart for that. Now, go away.
right.
Yeah, our awareness increases, and so we're aware of that feeling, and so we shut that feeling off.
Is all fear, where is all fear derived from?
Out from emotion, and we perceive that an experience lasts some period of time, 30 minutes or 15 minutes, some period of time. But within that perceived experience, there are dozens of thoughts, individual thoughts that we process in order to create that perception of an experience. With every single thought that we process, we are obligated to make a decision before we can go to the next thought. And that decision is very simply, this thought feels good and I like it, I want more of it, or it doesn't feel good and I don't like it. That is the only emotion that there is. That's all there is to an emotion.
Yeah.
All these things that we perceive to be emotions like grief and sorrow and so forth are conditions of being that we enter into. And so the lens that we're using to interpret these thoughts is through the lens of grief or sorrow or happiness or whatever. So we're predisposed to continue that path. But by making that decision about every single thought, then when we don't like something, it's because it conflicts, it is stress. It conflicts with our perception of self, and we're
That makes
not
sense.
getting more of what we like. And so we interpret that negatively and we resist that. We don't want to change our perception of self if we don't have to, in order to perpetuate our perception of self. We reach a point in our lives, and this can happen anywhere from 20s to 70s, we will get tired of playing the game. And so we enter a stage that I call stasis. And we quit trying to modify our identity in order to trick the world. And we focus on trying to change the world in order to conform to our identity. Ideally, what we seek is stability. The
Hmm.
difference between stasis and stability anticipates change. Stasis doesn't
Oh, I
anticipate
love
change.
that. That's
So
so
we quit
true.
changing and we try to manipulate the world. And so the old man on the corner that's screaming at the kids for playing on his lawn or walking across his lawn is just in a condition of stasis. He wants to, change them to conform to how his identity is.
I love how you said that. So basically, stability welcomes change.
Stability welcomes change. The creator is absolute stability. And so the more we advance along the path, the more we experience stability because we're experiencing more of our creatorness.
And also, the more we experience stability, which is welcoming change, the more we're in the flow. And
Yeah,
that's creativity, and that's creativeness in motion.
absolutely.
I love this, Dean. And so then going back to our life purpose being to or humans purpose is to explore ourselves, and then our human experience to do what we like to do. Why should we like to do what we want to do? Why should we like it? What about liking what we do? What does that
Well,
do for
that
us?
changes as we go through the experiences. When we're an infant, we like, you know, uh, formula or milk and sleep and warmth. But that transforms that creates the thoughts or the beliefs that we incorporate into our identity until we get to a point where we have that awakening where we realize it's not fulfilling. I'm not really getting happier. And so we begin to look for the alternatives. We look inside. We realize we've got all this emotional baggage that we need to heal, that we keep attracting these thoughts because of the way we're interpreting, because of the beliefs that we have, and that's controlling our behavior. And so we start letting all of this stuff go. And when we do that, then what emerges is our authentic self. And when we are able to do that, feeling our creatorness feels better than anything else we could possibly imagine to feel. And so consequently, our attachment to the authenticity of the physical and all of these beliefs that we've had just begin to dissipate. And we begin to be that, which is we become more mindful. We keep our awareness inside. We feel our authentic self, regardless of what emerges around us in the village. And so we move past this range of consciousness that is providing with this intense experience.
And so the more that people explore themselves and the more that people do what they like to do, and the more awake people get, I mean, what kind of a planet would we have then?
Listen to John Lennon's Imagine song.
I love that song. Imagine all the people
Yeah,
living life in peace. I
yeah.
love it. Oh man, Dean Graves, has been an amazing interview. So I have a poem for you, and at the very end, I will ask you how can our viewers or watchers and listeners find you in your podcast. I'm going
Okay.
to go ahead and read this now. Thank you so much for your awareness, and thank you for being here. This has been amazing. Messages I receive are those of guidance, to bring awareness, to awaken the human experience, and shed light wherever there is dark. And wherever there is dark, a spark of existence creates a lasting imprint of the blueprints left by higher consciousness. And so it is felt with sincere gratitude to leave a message or two to lift us up towards connection. And that was taken basically by connecting to your energy. So thank you for
Good.
your inspiration and for
Yeah.
giving me that awareness.
Well,
Oh man,
thank you. I'm flattered. I'm honored.
well, thank you. Oh my goodness, I love this. This is love. This is all love, and I mean, this is why we're here. I mean, we're here. I always felt, Dean, that my purpose in life was really just to love as much as I can unconditionally, and I hear that a lot when I meditate and pray. Well, what's the purpose of that? To love unconditionally. Well, what does it mean to love unconditionally? Well, you just love with no conditions. I mean,
Hmm.
you just keep loving. You not only do you experience, I mean, to be the formula of love is to have no judgment. It's just to be in the present moment with someone or with other densities, and to really be experiencing the fruitfulness that people are able to bring, because at the very end of the day, we're all planting seeds, and however you want to plant that tree or what you want to grow depends on your awareness of yourself and your
Yeah.
authenticity. And
Yeah.
authenticity is your own energetic signature that is derived from your level of awareness.
Right.
And so, yeah, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your incredible wisdom and for unifying people the way that you are. How can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners find you?
Well, I have a website. It's called D Dean Graves, just the initial D Dean Graves, all one word, .info, and it has more information about me and how to contact me and so forth. I do have a new book coming out that's your audience can order it from their favorite bookstore. It'll be available August 30th, so a short time from now. And it has all of this information. It's kind of my compendium book. And it goes through explaining the origins of creation and the structure of creation, the archetypical mind, which is why we process thoughts the way that we do and why we create this hierophant. Explains Christ consciousness and forgiveness and just all sorts of things.
Well, sounds like it's right up my alley. What's the name of the book?
It's called The Enigma of Consciousness, a spiritual exploration of humanity's relationship to creation.
That's incredible. And you're incredible. And if you're incredible and we're one consciousness, I'm incredible too. So thank you so
You
much for
are
sharing your
you are
incredibleness.
incredible. Thank you.
I love this. Dean Graves, everybody on A Little Less Fear podcast. Thank you so much for being a blessing.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to A Little Less Fear podcast. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends and your family about A Little Less Fear podcast. And if you are interested in being on my show, feel free to leave me an email at alittlelessfear@gmail.com. Or if you have any questions or comments and you also want to leave me an additional message, you can also do so from my website, leaving an inquiry at www.alittlelessfear.com. You can get a copy of my book on Amazon, Amazon Kindle, and Amazon Kindle Unlimited, also titled A Little Less Fear. And thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate all the support. Leave me a review if you get a chance. I love to receive feedback, questions, and comments. And any way that I can be of support to you, please let me know. Thank you so much. I love you. Wishing you love, light, happiness, and many blessings your way.